Happy Mushoku Sundays, everybody. Welcome back. Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, the anime series, is finally back. Season 2, Part 2, Episode 1. Or you can say Season 2, Episode 13. That's actually a lot more better. But yes, welcome back, guys. It is time to dive into this series once again, and I'm super excited to see it back. Just seeing all the characters again, seeing my boy Zanoba. A lot of little great moments in this episode. For those that are not aware, last season, or last part, I was doing a Mushoku Tensei impressions / skipped content. Because yes, I have read the novel series up to volume 18 at this point. So I had a lot of fun last season kind of going through, giving my impressions on the episodes, and additionally including any kind of skipped content that people may be missing by just watching the anime only. So this kind of great content for anime onlys if you want to know what the anime itself skips, get some additional information about it, plus at the same time, talk about this great show. So yes, as per usual, anything that I cover could technically be covered in some other way later on, but I highly doubt it. They've been pretty consistent about most everything that's skipped not really being covered at any point unless it's something like a side story of a character elsewhere, which I will not cover. I think the only case that we had something kind of rearranged was probably the whole final chapter of Volume 1, which was put at the end of Season 1. So other than that, pretty much everything here is probably going to be stuff you'll never see as an anime only, so a lot of people like that. So with that all said, let's just jump into episode 13. I think this episode covered the novel series really well. We actually even went back and covered some stuff that the last episode of the first part skipped, which yes, is this whole scene after Rudius is cured and he goes to see his friends before he goes to propose his marriage in front of Ariel. So that was kind of cool as well. There is some tidbits in the mansion that I'll go through, which is like this fireplace and whatnot that unfortunately the anime skipped. But yeah, let's dive into it. Opening up the episode, yes, we do get the scene of Rudius keeping the bedsheet stain, which was another thing they kind of glossed over in the last part. But yes, Rudius did keep that little snippet off the bedsheet and put it into his altar. He's keeping it there. This is another holy relic that he's adding to his altar along with the Pantsu. And yes, a lot of emphasis pretty much throughout the entire episode of obviously Sylphie curing Rudius of something that he's been inflicted for a long time, which I think cannot be stated enough. And even in the novel series, there's a lot of emphasis that this is something of a massive change for Rudius. He has his manhood back. He feels, I think, which kind of puts it into words the best, he feels like a human again. He no longer feels less than human. He's able to perform the thing that is sort of, by human standards, what he's supposed to be doing. I think that is one of those things that we downplay and unfortunately rarely see in storytelling, is the idea of how that affects, how ED itself affects a man. And the idea that this is something that is expected of me as a man. If you break down the meaning of a man to its most simplest form, it is to procreate. And he's no longer able to do that. So Sylphie has given him something very precious, her first time, and it has cured him of this thing. And that leads him to his ultimate decision that this is something that she did for me. I need to return that favor. I need to give her something that's precious that she wants as well, which obviously in this case is marriage. But yes, again, I'm really happy that we got the scene in the classroom. Now, they did kind of skip the whole scene coming up to the classroom, which is Rudius noting how Sylphie is bow-legged, which I'm perfectly fine with them skipping over that. Seems like something that we don't really need to go over, but yeah, when he enters in the classroom, there is two things in here that I thought was kind of a missed opportunity. One, it makes sense. We kind of glossed over in the first part how Julie is terrified of Rudius right now. And again, for those that missed that, is because when they captured Priscilla and Linnea, he pretty much acted out word for word this tale that is told to dwarves, which is this monster in the holes, which if there's bad kids, that this monster will appear from the hole, capture them, throw them in a bag, bring them back down into the hole, and then later on when they re-emerge, they're changed children. And that's pretty much what he did to Priscilla and Linnea. The moment that they come back out of his room, they're changed and everything. So she's terrified of Rudius because of this fairy tale. And even to this point, she's still terrified of him. So when he goes up and actually pats her head, he's thinking about, oh my gosh, I just realized how cute she is. And yes, additionally, she's terrified. Yes, she doesn't pull away or anything like that, but she's trembling the entire time. But yes, it is nice that we finally get the announcement to everybody that, yes, I am cured. Now, the annoying thing they have in this scene is Linnea and Priscilla knew this. They always knew this. They knew it from the moment that he captured them. Well, he knew it before then. They was kind of wondering why he never made any moves on them. They can smell that he is turned on. And so they've always noticed that he's never been turned on. And even after he touched Persona when they captured him, he didn't do anything. So they were always kind of questioning what's wrong with this guy. And so in this scene, when he first walks in there, immediately Lenny is like, meow. And Persona's like, what the hell? It stinks. They can smell that he's suddenly aroused. So he has been cured by Sylphie. And yes, right here, he is aroused. And so he's now finally able to look at these two and get something out of it. And they immediately know, boss, you're cured. So that was kind of an oddity that they changed that. But yes, he announces to everybody that I've been fixed. Now, they kind of show that hesitation in Rudius in the scene, but internally he's thinking about the fact that I can't tell them who cured me. I can't say, yeah, it was Sylphie, because they don't know who Sylphie is. They know Fitz, and Fitz, to them, is still a boy. Rudius is the only one at this point, besides Ariel and her team, that knows that Sylphie is actually a girl. That's the whole persona they've created of Fitz. So he can't just come out and say who cured him, even later on when Cliff asks, oh, you're getting married? To who? He can't say, because he's trying to keep Sylphie's identity a secret. So yeah, that's kind of a point that he makes there, and it does show that hesitancy, which I do like. But yeah, I do have to admit, in this scene, Lenny and Persona, there's still some rough edges in the adaptation. It seems like things are getting a little bit better, especially since like the very beginning of part 1 or part 2, but there's still some rough edges. Lenny and Persona in this scene, I was like, ugh, that looks a little rough, but that's fine. That's fine. Following this, they kind of skip a bunch of stuff. Rudius goes to sign up for supplementary classes. He goes to see Genius, the vice principal of the university. At that point, Genius believes that Rudius is going to leave the university. Rudius is like, yeah, technically I was here to get cured, and I got cured, but I'm not really leaving yet. He does contemplate, and they have this in a brief scene at some point in the episode. He does contemplate the idea that, yeah, I technically could move on to my next mission, which is I want to reunite my family. And yes, for him to do that, he would have to go to the Begret continent. So he's thinking, I could go to Begret right now, help my family, but a lot's happened. Here he's really noting that, yes, his initial goal in coming to university is to cure his AD, and yes, Man-God also wanted him to look into the displacement incident, but the first and foremost thing, the reason why he initially came here is because he was broken. He was broken as a man. But things have changed. Ever since he came to the university, he met Cliff, he met Zanoba, he adopted Julie, basically. That's pretty much his child, if you want to think about it that way. And yes, of course, he has met Sylphie, and he really does love Sylphie. As long as Sylphie is here, I'm going to remain here. And oh yes, there's also this whole thing with Nanahoshi. He has kind of dedicated himself to helping Nanahoshi, and so he wants to do that as well. And, to that note, here he is realizing, maybe the reason why the Man-God sent me here was possibly to meet Nanahoshi. Maybe that was the Man-God's real intention, and then Sylphie was just icing on the cake. So he's starting to kind of wonder, again, what was the intention of the Man-God in sending him here? Because the Man-God's always kind of vague with what he tells him. But yes, right here, he's kind of thinking about Sylphie. As long as she's here, I'm going to stay here. Oh yeah, by the way, she's technically guarding Ariel, and she's going to probably stay until the graduation, but he doesn't really know what she's going to be doing beyond that. And he's already contemplating here, well, if after that, if they do return to the Asura Kingdom, would I want to accompany them? Would it be right for me to accompany them? But still, before that, he wants to kind of touch base with Paul. And this is where he's talking about the letters. Hey, yeah, I might want to keep sending him letters. I've been sending him letters. I'm not sure if he's actually receiving them, but I'm going to wait until I receive word from Paul before I make my next steps. This is where we cut over to the scene with Nanahoshi, which this scene really did break me in the novels, and it kind of broke me here as well, this is obviously finally kind of implying a lot to Nanahoshi and her feelings about love itself. Yes, him bringing up, hey, what does it mean to be in love? They did kind of skip over a few little moments here just before he got to get some conversation with her, but he noticed that Nanahoshi was the only one that seemed to not notice that he had changed. Obviously, because she's always just kind of focused on what she's doing. Everybody else is communicating to him like normal. Nanahoshi's like in her documents over here. She's not paying attention to him. They didn't really converse much. He does note that despite the fact that she's kind of very nasty when it comes to her talking about something else, like here with love, shut up, move on with your work, stop talking, use your hands, get to work. She actually does like conversations. But yeah, here he is noting that there is an obvious generation gap. Again, when she came from over there, she was 17. And when he came from over there, he was 34. So it technically notes that there is a massive, generation gap here in what they actually like. He even knows the fact that they found in conversation that she didn't even know about Sailor Moon. She is into light novels and manga, but she doesn't even know who Sailor Moon is. But she did know who Dragon Ball was. And I think this is obviously to the current generation right now, which does kind of surprise me. Even Japan, I would assume that, granted, this novel series was probably wrote like in the 2012s or something like that. I'm not sure if that's before Sailor Moon Crystal came out, but I think even still in Japan, I would think that on a regular basis, Sailor Moon keeps kind of popping up. They keep rebooting it or they keep airing it, but apparently she doesn't know what Sailor Moon is. But yeah, they get into talking about love itself. And he kind of knows that she's inexperienced, like she has no experience in love. That's why she's trying to push back. But yeah, she's like, no, even me, I was in love as well. But we got in a fight, and that was the end of it. And Rudius right here is kind of connecting, even though she's saying like we had a fight and that was the end of it, could imply the idea of them just kind of breaking up and separating. But Rudius is noting that, oh yeah, by the way, when we got transported, I did see her arguing with a boy. Again, reminder, way back then, there was 2 boys and there was Nanahoshi. And there was an argument happening between her and one of the boys, and then everything happened. So she's kind of assuming that maybe that was the boy that she was in love with, which obviously at this point is kind of tragic because, yes, she got separated from him, and she's trying to get back now. So again, it's kind of that whole aspect of not only did her life get kind of disconnected, she got pulled into this world that she doesn't want to be in. She wants to go back to her old world. Unlike Rudius, she wants to return home. She liked her life there. Whereas Rudius didn't like his life there. He's happy where he's at. So there's that big difference between the two of them. But yeah, additionally adding love being an element of something that she has been pulled away from. So yeah, really, really good little scene there. After this, in the light novel, this is where Rudius goes to Ariel and they have the whole proposal scene, but obviously we've already covered that, so we're skipping that. But no, we go to the cafeteria where Rudius is talking to Cliff, Zanoba, and Julie's there as well. Cute little Julie. I love the Julie moments in this episode. She's so cute. But no, Rudius is asking Cliff and Zanoba about marriage. We did skip a lot here. First of all, Zanoba kind of lays out what is expected of people in Sharon. In Sharon, it's expected for men to be sending gifts to the partner's household. It was the opposite in Millis. The woman is given a dowry to provide to the husband. In exchange, the men are expected to assist the wife's family if needed. It was apparently different for each race, but Cliff did note that he didn't know what was expected of elves. Obviously, for Elinalise. But Cliff did plan to marry once they removed her curse. Still, Cliff notes that Elinalise wasn't like most elves. So Cliff's doubt that she'd be fussy about it. But yes, that's when the conversation goes to houses. Cliff brings up the point that, yeah, you can get a house, which, yeah, Reese does note that Paul did technically go and get a house once he got married to Zenith. But of course, in the novel series, it notes that he did have to get help from Philip in order to get that house and to get a job over there. But Zanoba offered to buy Rudius a house. He pretty much told Rudius, I'll buy you the biggest house in the town. Yes, Zanoba's got a lot of money. Again, he is technically a prince of a kingdom. Despite the fact that he was sent off, he does have a lot of money. But yeah, Rudius is like, no, I don't want to rely on him for that. I can't do that. I'm gonna handle this myself. Yeah, Cliff asks who he's actually getting married to. Again, he doesn't want to mention that it's Sylphie, but yeah, he does mention the fact that it was one that cured his illness, and he offers to do a ceremony in the church if the one that he's marrying is a believer in Millis, which was really cool. I do always like how Cliff is changed so much from being like this snobby kid that's full of himself to now just being a bro. But yeah, that's when we get to the house, which I actually was very surprised how much the anime kind of focused in, how much time the episode itself was spent on the house itself. I thought that this would just be kind of skimmed over. We'd probably jump straight to the whole fight, which they kind of did. They skipped a little bit of side stuff and a little side information, which I'll get into here, but it was a good little adaptation of it. I just love seeing this is basically the bros chapter. When I read this, I was like, holy crap, this is the bros chapter. We got Cliff, we got Zanoba, and we got Rudius, and they're just going to go into a house and handle things. I think they kind of worded this wrong, and maybe I just misread it, but there is the note here that obviously the house was cheap because it was haunted, that the previous owner died, and not only that, they actually called for an exorcist, and the people that performed that ended up murdered as well. So this is a place that has had multiple murders, so they're assuming that there's either bandits coming in at night, taking over the house and killing whoever's in it, or there's a monster that's hidden somewhere in there. Obviously, there's seemingly a lot of emphasis on the idea of it being a ghost or some sort of ghastly being, because Rudius brings Cliff with him because he knows divine magic, so hoping that he can use exorcism on them. But the other thing that made the house cheap, and they didn't mention this, is that yes, Rudius in the end put down in his guarantor Bodygotti and Ariel. And immediately the manager kind of rubbed his hands together and gave him the VIP treatment, kind of knocked the price down by half. So there's another reason why it was so cheap. And yes, technically later on, when Sylphie's talking about how, where are we going? I wonder what we're doing. And Rudy's like, yeah, you kind of, you know exactly what we're doing. You've been gathering information. It was probably because, yeah, that realtor probably contacted Ariel, and Ariel's like, yeah, he can put my name down. I'll work with him. And that's how they knew. As a side note, kind of world lore kind of stuff, Rudius does note that liege lords in a region typically offered home loans to residents, but there was no clear regional lord in Shariah. Instead, the three magic nations and the Magician's Guild jointly administered the territory. He also notes the idea that there's any disputes about real estate and whatnot, typically they would handle it, even though he doesn't know exactly what that would be. But some interesting kind of side note there. But anyways, yes, they confront the building itself. He was going to bring Elinalise with him, but he's figuring at this point that because he's cured, if Elinalise does anything to tempt him, it would be hard to fight. He even mentioned the idea that later that night, if they were all sleeping, he might end up having Elinalise sneak up to him and whisper in his ear, "Don't worry, Cliff's right there, but it'll be okay." just right in front of Cliff. It was funny. But yeah, Rudius makes a club for Zanoba because he knows that Zanoba breaks things. Zanoba busts open the door, breaks the door, which he gets in trouble for later on, by the way. They go in there. Cliff makes a comment about how serious Rudius has taken the whole situation. This is kind of cool because it does kind of call back to previously, for those who don't remember, when Soldat came into the town, because the whole thing with Bodygotti. Because Bodygotti came to the town, all these guilds were actually called. Soldat's guild was called there as well, but they decided to have a meeting instead because Bodygotti was the situation was handled. But during that time, Rudius went there and hung out with Soldat, with Elinalise and Cliff. After the party, or after their meeting, they took Elinalise and Cliff, took them out for an adventure. And during that time, yes, Rudius asked them how it went. Cliff pretty much said they were mean. They basically were teasing me the whole time, picking on me the entire time, ripping into him. And Rudius was like, I don't think that they were ripping into him. It was probably more the fact that they knew that he was a rookie, and him being kind of a genius in his own mind, anything that they kind of pointed out, he would end up interpreting that as them basically ripping into him. So it was kind of a cool little kind of callback to that. But yeah, they go around and they check all the rooms, and this is where it kind of just skims over most of this stuff. Some things to note here is that one of the rooms had a chimney in it, and in the chimney there was an engraving in it, and they thought it was kind of interesting. They went around and checked all of the room. He notes that it seems like the floor itself is actually mirrored, that there's literally two kitchens. The entire floor plan almost feels like it's actually mirrored. He does also note that the inside of the house looks nice. It's just the outside looks really torn down. The floor looks nice and everything. The walls look kind of run down. The roof looks run down. So there's kind of an inconsistency there, but he's also, again, mostly noting the idea that it almost feels like two houses connected, which, yes, now seeing it in anime form, the place is a lot bigger than I was actually imagining in my mind. I mean, I knew the house was going to be big, but the moment that I seen it in the PVs, I was like, okay, that's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. That's a mansion. That's a massive place. But yeah, after clearing everything, they decided to stay the night. We get a little kind of conversation between all of them. Rudius bringing up the fact that he's super excited. He's going to get married after this. It was a cute little scene there. And it was kind of worded a little differently here, but I did like how Cliff kind of came up to Rudius and said, hey, make sure to invite me and Elinalise. I won't mind that you don't invite me, but please make sure to at least invite Elinalise. But yeah, that's when something goes bump in the night. I like how they kind of framed this whole scene, because it had this whole moment of Cliff being on spot duty, and then you have the slow movement of the doll kind of moving around the house itself before it kind of comes up behind Cliff and he looks back at it. They did a little good job of kind of hinting on that aspect of horror with this whole scene, which honestly, when I was reading it, I had the vibes of that, just that idea of the guys being there in the middle of the night and something creeping up in the night. But yeah, they go and look around in the house for a little bit before finally giving up, and then something popping up in front of Rudius. And yeah, that was the point in which he fires a stone cannon. In the novel series, he actually hesitates because he's charging up the stone cannon. He goes to shoot it, but subconsciously he thinks about, crap, I don't want to damage the house. And that's what causes him to hesitate just enough that the thing doesn't actually pierce the target. It actually gets, it ends up kind of going off target a little bit, gets deflected. So that's the reason why the stone cannon itself didn't work. There's a possibility it could have worked if he didn't hesitate, but they don't really get into details on that. But yeah, Zanoba steps in front and takes a hit. When I read this, I was like, no way. Now, granted, the anime kind of was a little bit more obvious that it didn't really pierce, otherwise you didn't see any blood or anything like that, but I was going to be super mad if Zanoba got killed right here. I was like, don't even tell me they're going to kill off Zanoba. I was so freaking mad. But yeah, he's a blessed child, so nothing really hurts him. The thing's just going nuts on him. Rudius tries to fire another stone cannon. I'm not sure what the whole Gates of Babylon thing was going on with Rudius, but I don't know. Maybe they wanted to make it out like he was doing something bigger because the first thing didn't work. But yeah, that's when Zanoba says no. Zanoba's like, no, I'll handle this, holds it still until it stops moving, binds it up, and we have a little conversation about how, that's right, this is a moving doll. And Zanoba's super excited about it. And he wants to research it because, yes, obviously, well, Zanoba wants a doll that can move because Zanoba is, yes, attracted to that kind of stuff. Again, for those that don't remember, Zanoba literally humps these statues. That's how much he loves figurines and art. So yeah, that's obviously where his mind's going. Rudius' mind is immediately going to, yes, like Maid robots and all that kind of stuff. And yes, even throwing some silicone on it and stuff like that and doing other things. So that's where Rudius' mind's going. Cliff over here, he's just like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Stop talking about that. We got to talk about the fact that there's magic armors and stuff like that in the world. So it's probably a monster. And Zanoba doesn't like that, grabs him by the head. I did like that when Rudius finally tells him to leave, let him go. Immediately you can hear in the background, you can hear Cliff chanting incantation to heal his face. I like that kind of little added extra. Typically with anime, they like to kind of separate dialogue. Like they don't like to talk over each other. So it's very rare that you'll actually find a scene, unless there's like a crowd in the background, you'll rarely have a scene where two characters are talking over each other. And here, I like kind of having Cliff in the background kind of doing that incantation. But yeah, they kind of figure there might be other ones, so they're going to check the house again. Now, technically in the novel series, they couldn't see anything at this point, so they decide to take the doll, take it back to the university. Rudius puts it inside of like a earth magic tome so that it can't get out and harm Julie. And then they head back to the mansion the next day when they have more lighting. And this is the point where they're checking the house again, trying to find out if they missed anything. Rudius does note that the chimney itself, upon inspection again, there's no dirt. It's actually been cleaned. And he does remember, oh yeah, that doll that we'd seen a minute ago, it had these, and I like how the anime kind of shows it. It has like these little cloth that's kind of strapped around its feet so that it can clean that stuff. And the chimney's looking clean, so obviously it seems like this robot every night is going out and cleaning everything. Even after its master's long gone, it seems like it's still keeping the place clean. But yeah, upon finding this little secret chamber downstairs where this rotating wall, he's at this point kind of going, oh wait, okay, so it's obvious that these things were designed to go around and clean, and it's just unfortunate that they're also attacking anybody that's actually invading the house. So unfortunately, the previous owner, the exorcist, they're just casualties to this thing that was just defending its domain. That's what it was designed to do. So that's kind of the unfortunate thing about the whole situation. But yes, this is when we go into the secret chamber, and my gosh, when I read this part, my brain started going a million directions with this whole situation. Yes, they find this little secret chamber. There's like this pedestal on the side that is obviously molded for this doll to kind of sit down in. You can see it in the anime, but he notes it in the novel series. There's like these little transparent gems that are on it as well. Obviously something that probably recharges it when it lays down on top of it. Kind of like your charging mechanisms for certain devices. When you set it down, it has those like little metal things that will connect to a metal thing and charge it. It's seemingly kind of that same concept there. But yes, additionally, they find a book. Now, the book in the novel series is described as on the desk there was a book that hadn't been eaten by bugs, probably kept clear by the doll. It had a title and a crest in a language Rudius couldn't read, which meant that it may be Sky God tongue or Sea God tongue, or a language so obscure he never heard of it. However, the crest and the script felt familiar to Rudius, perhaps the university library. Now, he does mention later on in this segment that the anime is adapting here, that later on he comes back in there and he realizes that the crest in the chimney is actually very similar to the one on the front of the book. So that's where he's probably making that connection right here. In the book were sketches of magic circles. Later in it was a drawing of a four-legged, four-armed doll. Around the sketches were arrows and text, seemingly annotations and commentary. There was also detailed sketches of limbs and magic circles. It was packed with unknown information. At this point, Rudius assumes this guy was researching something forbidden. That's why later on, when he takes it back to the university, he's actually talking about like getting a designated chambers to research it in. He even thinks about asking Nanahoshi if she can use her connections to the Magician's Guild to get him like some sort of designated place they can research it so that nobody knows they're doing anything with it. But yeah, it was interesting that Cliff kind of notes here that, man, this design and the way it's laid out looks awfully like a magical implement. Now remember, for those that don't remember, magical implements is kind of the concept in this world where people use magic circles on devices and whatnot and makes them trigger to do something else. So, I mean, I think one of the first examples that he gave was something that was akin to a lighter or something like that. They can inscribe things on something to make it do something else. An object itself becomes magical. So the assumption here is that this doll might be something similar to a magical implement. But yes, this following scene had me kind of emotional when I read it, and this is the scene where Rudius, Cliff, and Zanoba head back to the university. Now again, they already brought the doll back to the university prior, but in the anime, this is when they're taking it back there. And I think that's probably why they didn't do a certain thing in this scene that was kind of impactful to me. But yes, he thanks everybody for their help. Cliff's like, no problem, we're bros, right? We're friends. But yeah, Zanoba stops them and has a very important request. That he wants to do the research on this doll and the book itself. And the reason why Zanoba is pushing this is because all the way up until this point, Zanoba feels like he's been a failure. From the very beginning when Rudius was reunited with him, what was the biggest upset? This is my master. I came here so that it can learn magic because I wanted to be just like Master. I wanted to make these figurines just like Master. He was making a dedication to learn magic and in preparation that he be reunited with Rudius and then he can learn how to do that. But, yes, unfortunately, he was a failure. He didn't have enough mana. He can't do what Rudius can do, and that was devastating to him. So they went and got Julie, and they started training Julie. But even now, Zanoba is showing that this is something that upsets him, that he can't do more. Even when it comes to, okay, I'll just carve the things, he can't do it. He's not meticulous enough. He's got too much strength. He's breaking the things before he can get anything done. And this is upsetting him. Up until this point, the only worth that Zanoba has been to Rudius and Julie and their research and their crafting the figurines has just been strictly money. And this is something that's been weighing down upon him, and that's what leads him to eventually, in the novel series, it kind of has Rudius thinking about how Zanoba has really thought this through. He's like, Zanoba is typically just fixated on figurines. But here, it feels like he's actually thought this through. Like, this is something that he's passionate about. And so that kind of strikes him a little bit. And so Zanoba thinks that he's hesitating while he's thinking about that. And Zanoba just hits the ground, like, in the middle of the snow. He's on his face, like, please, Master, let this be something that I can contribute. He's like, I know that it's going to take me a long time. If you do it yourself, Master, you'll probably handle this really quickly. But let me do that. Let this be something that I can do. I feel like I can do this. Please let me handle it. I thought it was a really big moment for Zanoba because, again, up until now, Zanoba's always been like this doofy character that just is obsessed with dolls and statues and unfortunately has killed people before. His wife. He killed his wife just not really knowing his own strength and being obsessed with dolls and taking heads off and stuff like that. This is something that kind of puts Zanoba in an area where he thinks different. He just kind of works different than most people. But here he's got this passion and this desire to do something for his master. And so that's what drives him to kind of say, please let me do this. Let me be the one that handles this thing. Let me take it off your plate. Let me prove myself that I'm worth more than just money. And it kind of goes to that whole conversation earlier when Rudius was getting a house and he's like, I'll just buy the house. It's like Zanoba's like, yes, I have, this is what I have. I don't have much, but this is what I have. Let me give this to you. It's super good. I love Zanoba. Zanoba's like one of my favorite characters in the entire series because he's so fascinating and he just works different. And that's kind of the misconceptions that you can get from him. But anyways, it really goes a really good scene. Really good scene. Love it. But yes, after this, which I completely knew this was going to happen, by the way, we skip a whole massive segment in the novel series. And like when I first read this, I'm like, this is not going to be in the anime. It's not in very important stuff, but it is sort of hints at the lore of the house itself. But yes, Rudius employs Balda the Large Hollow, which is an architect. He's an artisan, renovator, expert architect affiliated with the Magicians Guild, acquired his skills at the holy country of Milis, and has about 30 years of experience. And this guy is going to renovate and fix up Rudius's new house. And during the time of them kind of walking around the house and checking it out and inspecting it, I do like the fact they note that Balda knows the rumors about Rudius Quagmire Rudius, this guy is extremely powerful and dangerous. But still, this guy can't help but open his mouth and scold Rudius. I love that. Like, immediately when they get to the front door, he's like, who the heck broke the front door? He's like scolding Rudius over the broken door, even though it was Zanoba that did it. But yeah, he makes a lot of notes as they're walking around the house. He noted the floor was well crafted, but the walls and the ceiling were shoddy. He noted how it was almost as if the basement was the most important part of the building, and everything else was built around it. Rudius realized he was very perceptive. The rooms and the stairs were made by a talented builder about 100 years ago, but someone made renovations to the walls and the ceiling, so that's where it went haywire. That's when we get to the fireplace. Again, I noted the fireplace before. That's when they got to the fireplace. Balba felt that they shouldn't mess with the fireplace. The emblem that Rudius noted before was a mark of a genius craftsman. His name was lost in time, but in Asura, magical implements with this mark fetched a high price. Rudius at this point realized that it was the same crest found on the diary. So whoever made this fireplace, which at this point is noted as being a magical implement, probably, you put mana into it, it makes a fire or something like that. He notes this is a magical implement, and it's very well crafted. And anything that is made by this person is sold for an amazing amount of price. This person was famous. But additionally, saying fetched a high price, typically anything that people have anymore they're selling are small items. This is a massive fireplace. So this thing's probably worth a fortune. But additionally, kind of noting the idea that whoever made the fireplace, at least their crest is on the book. Possibly the person that built this doll. But additionally, this is a person that's extremely famous. So whoever designed this stuff was famous there, name lost, but they're a very famous person. Moving on, the fact that everything was pretty much, the structure itself was mirrored. He assumed that the second kitchen, because there's a kitchen over here and there's a kitchen over here, he assumed the second kitchen was probably a room for bathing. Rudius ended up making that room into a modern Japanese bathing room. And we get to see a brief shot of that, Rudius showing Sylphie around the house, and he goes to this one room and it literally looks like there's a bath in there, like a modern bath. Additionally, in the basement, Rudius gave him some strange designs and wanted a secret room. 2 weeks later, the renovations were done. You'll find out about that stuff later on, so I'm not going to get into details on that. It did make the guy raise a brow, but yes, he had something designed in the basement. But yes, that's when we cut to Rudius bringing Sylphie to the house. Sylphie super faking that she doesn't know about it. I did love that they included the hair. I love that. There was a side of me that almost thought they were going to skip the hair thing. But yes, when they arrive there, Rudius notes the house itself, the roof, he wanted it made green. And this was basically similar to Sylphie's old hair. Something that obviously Sylphie herself didn't like. And that was mainly because she was bullied for it. In her entire childhood, she was bullied because she had green hair. People seen it as evil. But yes, obviously after the displacement incident, she no longer has the green hair, but she still has that stigma there. But Rudius here is kind of noting that I made it the same color as your hair that it used to be because I liked it. Even if you didn't like it, I liked it. So I thought it was a very little sweet scene there. But yes, they go around their house, they check everything. There was some cute moments in the novel series here because obviously they're going to each room. Rudius is acting like a car salesman going around and explaining everything. Obviously telling about the bath. They get in the kitchen and she's like, it looks normal. And he's like, yep, it does. I thought it was cute. I love the little scene of them going around the house itself. But yes, eventually getting to the bedroom, her noting the big bed. What we need a big bed for? Yeah, we all know what it is. And yeah, this is the point which Rudius wants to discuss the future, which they've kind of implied a little bit in the walking around the house. Like when they get to the dining room, there's like this massive table with like 10 chairs, and they know that they can have parties and whatnot, but they can also have children. But yeah, even here, she's even noting, oh yeah, by the way, I'll have as many kids as you want, which yes, he really liked hearing. But no, his whole point here was to really get into their future. And then obviously the question mark here is, what's going to happen with her and Ariel? Which, yes, right here, Sylphie is confirming with Rudius, she is still working with Ariel. Like, despite the fact they got married and everything, she does feel bad about it. She even says that here. She says, like, I'm sorry you bought this nice house for me and everything, and I'm not going to be in it much. She still has her duty to help her friend, Ariel. So she's kind of noting it here, am I not enough for you, kind of thing like that. She's acknowledging that she's going to be parted with him a lot. Even though he's moving forward with their marriage, she's not able to be there all the time with him because she still has this responsibility for her friend. So even still then, he's accepting this. Go on, don't worry, I'll handle the house. It's fine. She gave me her first time. I was rough with her, the morning after she showed up and she was still smiling. That's what cured me. It's thanks to her that I'm literally a human again. This isn't like he's not getting something out of this, which, yes, is why he proposes to her once again. Let's get married. It was cute. It was a cute little scene. And yes, her asking him to not disappear on me again. The flag statements, the don't disappear on me again, Rudius. You did it once before, don't do it again. Yeah, super, super great little episode. I had a lot of fun going through the whole segment with the bros, going through the mansion again. When I read that was a lot of fun. I admit that a lot of this stuff, and honestly, Volume 10 in general, which is what we're getting into now, Volume 10 in general is not... There's a couple really good points in it, but it's not my favorite volume overall. But there is still some segments that I'm extremely excited for that we'll get into once we get into. But it is definitely a slice of life volume, so expect that. At least they skipped, again, the whole scene with the renovation of the house, which, again, I didn't really think they'd be covering just because it's just so like blah, whatever. But it was a fantastic little bit, and I enjoyed it. So I kind of wish Zanoba's scene was a little bit more emotion in there. Having Zanoba prostrate himself on the ground and beg Rudius was really kind of a sign of that determination that he has to fulfill that role. It's fine they didn't include that, but it was a little bit of a bummer. I think there's a lot to Zanoba's character that I think can get sort of missed in translation if it doesn't get properly handled. But we'll see. There's a couple other scenes that I want to see with Zanoba before I make my full judgment there. But yeah, additionally, not having Persetta immediately say it stinks, what the hell, when Rudius walked in the door was like, what? These two know exactly what's wrong with Rudius. They don't need to be told that he has an illness. They knew that something was wrong with the boy. That was kind of interesting as well. But yeah, overall, interesting episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this rundown and all the skip content for you guys. Again, if you're not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll be doing this every single week. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people enjoyed it last season, so looking forward to doing it again. Additionally, if you are a novel reader, please keep the comments down below strictly to anime-only content. I don't want people to start spoiling things for other people. If you are an anime-only, even though I say that, be careful looking at the comments down there. People just have a habit of going blah and just shooting things out there. Additionally, I do have a link in the description for our Discord channel. There we have 3 separate areas you can talk about Mushoku Tensei. We have an anime-only channel down in our seasonal discussions where you can talk anime-only. We have a Mushoku Monday, which is where I do the novel analysis every single Monday. And there we're currently talking up to volume 18, like chapter 4, I think, somewhere around there. And additionally, we have a thread, which has all of, like, spoilers fully open. You can ask for a link there. I think it's somewhere in the light novel channel. There's a thread in there. But anyways, plenty of places you can talk to about Mushoku Tensei with us. We have a lot of fans of Mushoku Tensei on our Discord, and it's a lot of fun discussing it. But until next week, until next Mushoku Sunday, thank you guys for dropping by. If you like this content and you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon link, tips link, so thanks membership button down below. I greatly appreciate it. Support the channel. It means a lot to me. Until next Mushoku Sunday, y'all take care.